Hi, everybody, and welcome back to season 4 of the Beabosscoaching Podcast. My name is Beatriz, and I am the host of the Beabosscoaching Podcast, founder of Beabosscoaching, and I am so thrilled to be back with you after a refreshing break and to finally share with you the vision that I've had for this season. I know it's been a long time since season 3 last ended, but there's a reason for that. There's just been so many new things that have been happening in my life, and I'm excited to share with you throughout this season. And it's an exciting time for me. But I think what I love most about this season is that it's all about the theme of expansion, which is something that I have definitely been experiencing this past few months. And I'm excited to share more of what's coming and the new things that are happening in my life. So this theme will weave through every episode as we hear from our amazing guests and they share their own stories of growth and transformation. So this season brings you a powerful mix of inspiring guest interviews and intimate solo episodes where I'll share personal insights and practical tips from my own experience, as I always do. And if you're new here, welcome. It'd be incredible for you to come and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform and share it with me on Instagram at the handle Beabosscoaching. I'm excited to kick off this new season with our first guest, Kris Cazares Neri. She's an intuitive life purpose coach and energy healer who's been an entrepreneur since her teens. And before answering her calling as a healer, Kris ran a successful wedding photo and video studio in San Diego. And now she guides visionary women in discovering their soul purpose and embracing their healing journey. I'm so grateful that Kris was able to come and share her wisdom with us. And as you listen to this episode, I invite you to reflect on your own journey of expansion. How has it touched your heart, transformed your business, and shaped your path forward? New episodes release every Monday morning. And together, let's explore what expansion means for each of us in entrepreneurship and in life. I hope you enjoy the show. Coming on to the podcast, thank you for kicking off the podcast. So this episode is the first episode of season 4 of the Beabosscoaching Podcast. And I'm just so excited to have you on. But before I continue rambling about how excited I am.
Well, I'm excited too.
Yes, I'm so glad. If you could share your name and the name of your business and where you're located. And I guess finally, it's a kind of like a 4-part question, but finally, who you serve.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, first of all, 4 seasons, that's like an incredible accomplishment. So congratulations to you. That's a lot to celebrate, and it's an honor to be here today. Yes. So my name is Kris Cazares Neri, and I am an intuitive life purpose coach and an energy healer. And I serve visionary women who want to share a piece of their soul medicine, their soul purpose with the world.
Okay. There's so much there that I could ask you about.
Short and sweet, but packed full of things.
It is. You said a lot of meaning, beautiful words, visionary and women, life, purpose. And I'm sure we'll get right into it. So thank you so much for being here today. I'd like to do a check-in with you. It's something that I started doing just with folks that I am connecting with, and I'd like to check in with you about where you are currently at in this space, in this moment. It could be now, but also what season of life you are currently in. I know that you and I met, just for the listeners to have a little bit of context or know, is that I know you and I met at the We All Grow conference that was last year in, I don't remember where.
October, maybe?
Yes, I think it was October. And immediately after talking to you and you telling me what you do, I immediately felt connected, and I knew that we had to stay connected and do something together or continue to stay in touch in some way, shape, or form, because I immediately felt that connection to that journey that you had. I sometimes we feel like it's funny to say, but sometimes you feel like you're the only one who's going through like the type of experience
Yes.
that you're going through, and it's like, actually, you know that that's not true, but it feels like it is. And so when you
Yeah.
meet someone that's like, oh wow, you're also experiencing a lot of what I am experiencing as well in just similar ways, I it's always fascinating. But
hmm
yeah, tell me where you're at and what has like happened since we met in October
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah, well, first of all, I remember that meeting too, and I remember thinking that you're very magnetic. Like I think that out of the I met so many beautiful, amazing people, but you really stood out. You have like this magnetism around you and this vibrancy. So just
Mhm.
have to say, let you know that. Gosh, what season of life I'm in right now? I am sinking. I'm in a space right now where I am just sinking deeper and more comfortably into my dharma and my unique soul purpose, while also navigating the very real and tricky and fun and intense realities of being a family woman. I'm a wife and I'm a mother of two kids. I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I homeschool my 10-year-old. So I have in my hands, and I wear a lot of hats,
Yeah, yeah.
but I'm in this season right now where I just feel like I'm sinking more into my truth, into the truth of who I am. And while also figuring it out at simultaneously at the same time, while sometimes feeling like nothing is figured out, with being a parent. It's like one thing
Right.
after another, emotionally or mentally, or like you're helping people or you're driving them around, and life just seems to go so quickly. So I'm in this place of both, really. But I think that's
Hmm.
kind of the realities of being a mother and an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't relate more.
Yeah.
It's yes, absolutely. I think that's why when you say it, when you talk about you sinking into comfortably into uh, your purpose and figuring it out at the same time, I maybe I'm not sure if to the listener that makes sense, but to me it makes total sense,
Yeah,
right?
I think that's the way of life. I think that
Yeah.
it is this never-ending journey, and one thing that I've learned being a healer and like really studying the healing path intensely and like through firsthand experience is that it's this constant spiral. And so there's a lot of these marks of feeling like, wow, I've really come so far, and like, wow, I'm also still in it. Um, and that's beautiful, and that's life on earth.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Yeah. I think when you say that, like it reminds me of just being aware and like what does that mean and what does that look like and feel like, which is I think in entrepreneurship, which I know we'll talk about, is a experience that it's difficult to describe until like unless you're like in it and you've
Yeah.
experienced it. And so I totally relate to that feeling of like sinking deeper into understanding and being comfortable with it, and also like trying to figure it out, trying to just like figure things out all the time, which I think is what entrepreneurship is to me is also just figuring things out. And why I
Absolutely.
feel so, yeah, like why I feel so connected to just like your mission as like an entrepreneur, which I guess is what I'd like to go into is can you let's go into your entrepreneurship journey.
Uh-huh.
I I know you have a podcast, which I don't think you
Yes.
mentioned that you're a podcaster as
Oh,
well.
right. That too. I'm a podcaster. It's called
Yes.
Kris Caz the podcast.
Yes, and I love your podcast. It's just I love listening to it because I've learned. It's after listening to it, I have sat and reflected on a lot of questions that you bring up in the podcast and with your guests and things that you also talk about. And but before you were a podcaster and before you became a healer for visionary women and intuitive coach for visionary women, you were a photographer, a wedding
That's right.
photographer.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk about that journey
Absolutely.
and how it's transformed or unfolded for you?
Yeah. So I am a retired wedding photographer. I actually owned a wedding photo and video studio here in San Diego called Anza Photo and Film. And I've been an entrepreneur and a photographer since I was a teenager. I shot my first wedding when I was in high school, which is even crazy to think about that somebody trusted me. But that actually
Yeah.
happened. And
Wow.
yeah, right. And I just always knew like this is what I want to do. And there were moments where, I wanted to do other things as well as be a photographer and be a creative person. But I just kind of like had my sights set on being a professional photographer. And I just started doing it. I had a lot of willpower, I had a lot of energy, and I really dedicated myself to learning. And I did it. And, I was that girl. Like, I went to college, I went to San Diego State University, and between all my classes, I was on Craigslist, like every single break I had, looking for people, looking for a photographer, and I would respond to them. And that's how I built my really successful business through the years, slowly but surely. And I learned a lot, and I learned how to become a better photographer. And then I just started, setting my visions high. I decided that I wanted to shoot Indian weddings. I just kind of like said, I want to shoot more luxurious weddings. I want to shoot Indian
Yeah.
weddings. And before you know it, my first Indian wedding was in India. I've traveled the world doing this work. My husband, actually, when we met, as a child, he was obsessed with video. He used to make movies and things. So we combined powers and created Anza. I used to be Kris Cazares Photography, and we created Anza Photo and Film together. And yeah, we traveled the world. I was, before I retired, ranked like top 50 photographers in the world. I was very proud of the business that I built based on something that I genuinely loved, like pure passion for the art of photography. And I've been an intuitive since I didn't really know I was an intuitive. That was just my reality since I was a child. And I used to have these moments when I was shooting, and I can picture one right now. And it's right before like the bride's gonna walk down the aisle, and I'm sitting at the front of the aisle with my camera, and the sun is shining, and we're on a vineyard, and it's a beautiful day. And you always get a little bit nervous and excited before that moment happens as a photographer, because you're like, you can't miss that moment. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I am like focusing in, and I just remember this message just overcame me. And it was like, you are doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And it just felt so good to feel that and to know that and to have my heart where my work was. So that was a lot of the energy behind my previous business. And as my seasons of life began to change, I became a mother. My husband and I, we got married, we started a family. Things really began to shift. And the energy and the willpower that I had that used to go into my business, it was going in other directions. It was going into being a mother. It was going into, those sleepless nights and raising a family. And it started to become a lot. And I remember one day I'm waiting to walk into the hotel room. And at this point, I'm shooting a lot of Indian weddings a year. And they're beautiful, like multi-day events with the most gorgeous outfits and backdrops and decorations, and the
Yeah.
kindest people. Like, I genuinely loved it so much. I love the people so much. That definitely stayed to the very end. Um, and I was about to walk into her hotel room to begin the getting ready portion of the day. And then this message came over me again. And it was said, "You don't want to be doing this anymore." And I
Mm.
felt so deflated because I was like, no, 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 no. Like, this is the life
Mhm.
plan. Like, this is what I'm going to do forever.
Yeah.
But I knew it. I knew deep in my heart that it was time for me to move on. And so, yeah, so it really transformed me in a lot of ways. I can't explain what overcame me, but I knew I needed to get out. My intuition was really guiding me. And I don't think everyone who transitions careers needs to do it the way I did, which was kind of like cold turkey almost. But it was the
Mhm.
way that I was being guided to go about it and to be called. I had a lot of healing to do. So it taught me a lot. It taught me how to run a business, how to be less sensitive. I was a very sensitive person.
Mm.
How to be more confident, how to be a really good photographer, how to work with people. I am working with brides. I mean, this is some high stakes stuff here. I'm working with their
Yeah.
families. I am managing a team. But then it also taught me what I can't carry with me into my new business. It taught
Mm.
me that I can't keep extracting and exploiting my mind and body and spirit, that I can't keep pushing myself through that willpower that used to do me good. I can't keep running on that energy and sucking myself dry and having nothing left for myself and nothing left for my children and my family life. It taught me that I needed to start listening to the voice within, and kind of brought me to this whole other iteration of my life.
Wow. Yeah. That's, I mean, I'm taking it in because it sounds as if your experience was spiritual, like something you said something came over you and you received those messages,
Yeah.
and that you have always been intuitive, and that there's like I'm curious. I'm
Uh-huh.
having this curiosity around your intuition and how you learned that that was perhaps your intuition, right? Like if even
Yeah.
or to even call it your intuition, right? Like receiving the messages in your body. I'm wondering, how did that clarity come for you that that was what your intuition felt like for you?
Yeah. You know, I didn't know that at first. It was more just like strong feelings, because when something is so part of your life, like our intuition, which I think actually most people can relate to this, that we do have a voice within and we do have access to it and we do listen to it, but we just kind of like shrug it off to the side, because we don't
Mhm.
recognize how important it is. Most of the time, nobody told us that in our life. Like, hey, there's this voice within. It's really important to listen to it. Like, I didn't know that at the
Mhm.
time. So for me, what began to happen, so COVID happened, right? And like many people, it kind of really gave me the space to really recognize that what I felt was relief when everything came to a halt. And I was like, I'm feeling
Mhm.
relief. This is weird.
Mhm.
What's going on here? And I had to start taking it more seriously, the fact that I didn't want to do this anymore. So it wasn't for a while that I recognized that I was really being guided. What began to happen was that my spiritual experiences started becoming more intense. Um, I started having vision, really, that I have one particular story that is really, it changed my life. So, what happened was, at this point in my life, I had just started meditating because my
Mhm.
daughter was a baby, and she was, at this point, I had two children, a 2-year-old and a he was 2 when she was born, so it was like a toddler and like a 1-year-old. And
Yeah.
I was also running my business and kind of going full throttle all the time, being gone on the weekends, being exhausted when I'm back, And I had to do something to change because I was like, I'm throwing a tantrum when my daughter's throwing a tantrum. Like, I need to change. And so I
Yeah.
started meditating. And I remember one day feeling called to go to my room and meditate. And I listened to that nudge. And so I told my husband, I'm like, I'm going to go in the room for a minute. Like, will you keep an eye on the kids? I went in there, but actually my son followed me and he's like jumping on the bed next to me. And I drop into meditation and I had a vision. And I had a vision of Mother Mary, and she's like up in the right-hand corner of my room. And it's so weird when things like this happen to me. You don't realize it's strange at the time because you're almost like in this trance state.
Yeah.
And I was overcome with peace. And there was this angel of sorts behind. I don't know whether to call him an angel or a guide, but it was a very tall native man. And he had dark skin and he was taller. And my ancestors are from southern Arizona and northern Mexico. So, they are like taller. So maybe he's an ancestor, but he had like a white loincloth wrapped around him and he had his hand over me. So, like, right over my head. And all of a sudden, I'm receiving energy, like an energy healing. And I'm telling you, it's not like, it was like really intense energy coming in through the top of my head. It felt like electricity, but not a painful electricity. And it went down into my heart. And the back of my heart space started spinning. And I was literally receiving a healing. And my son was jumping on the bed next to me. And this was all like, and I was dead sober. I don't smoke weed or anything like that. Like,
You're like, I
this is
swear I wasn't on drugs.
I am being a mom that came from the couch. Like, it just happened to me like this.
Wow.
And then Mother Mary told me to kind of cross my arms over my chest. So like making an X with my arms and putting either hand on either shoulder, and the chakras in between which I didn't even know much about at the time. The energy points in our palms, they ignited in like the most intense heat. It's like I could see beams of light shooting out of them, but it didn't burn. It was like super hot, but it doesn't burn. And I sat there for a moment in this energy, and then all of a sudden I realized what was happening. And I was like, what the, and I kind of got scared and I like stopped. I put my hands down. I'm getting chills right now. And I just was like, what just happened to me? And I went out to my husband and I was like, babe, because at this point, I think I had one energy session that was really intense for me before. And I felt like when I walked away from that energy session, I had a voice that said, you are fluent in the language of energy. You just didn't know you could speak it. And so that had happened about a month before this. And so I go to my husband, I'm like, babe, I think I can do it. I think I am supposed to work with energy. Like, I don't know what that means, And I just rested with him on the couch and I just kind of soaked it in, and it scared the shit out of me. And it wasn't the experience, it was the call to be a healer that scared me. Because I was raised Catholic and I love I love the energy in church. I love, Our Lady of Guadalupe. I love so much I'm very by nature spiritual. I love a lot about that part of things, but there was also a lot of things that I didn't align with. And I was so scared to be a bad girl and listen to the call of being a healer. So that's a big, intense story. But what happened was that year, it was like I was in a war, a battle between my head and my heart, my ego, and where I was being called in my soul. And I really had to reconcile a lot of that dissonance, and I really had to be courageous and brave, and I really had to rely a lot on my faith and my trust in the loving, divine, benevolent universe, or God, or spirit, or whatever we want to call it. and trust that I was going in the right direction. And now I am so incredibly thankful for the version of me that said yes, even when it was really scary and intense. I didn't understand what was happening, because now I get it. Now it all makes sense, you know? Now I'm at peace, but I had to go through a lot to get here as a healer.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
even remember your original question, but that's what came out.
Well, no, you answered it because you talked to me, you told me about the journey as a wedding photographer, being a very successful wedding photographer and starting that with your husband and expanding that, which is the theme of this season, which is expansion and your story to me, me hearing that to me is a version of expansion, right? Because it's a lot of
Yes.
newness that you're experiencing that is also like you're not sure what it is, but I love that you said yes to it. That version of yourself said yes, even though it was scary. And yeah, that just sounds like a very spiritual, other plane experience.
Yeah.
And the closest thing that I have come to anything like that, because yes, energy is, I do believe I'd like to explore more of how energy comes into our lives and the ways that we can use energy for our goals and what we want to do. But the closest thing that I can come to is I just remember I was running the marathon. I was running the New York City Marathon. And this was 2018. And I remember running. And up until the marathon, I had been training. But the most that I had run up until the day was about 15 miles, which was 11 less than the actual marathon. So when I was running the marathon, I was telling myself, how am I going to finish this? I need to run 11 more miles that I've never run before. And I remember getting to in mile 16 or something like that. And at that point, I put on my headphones and my brain did something where it's almost as if like, okay, when I was training, I would listen to music. And so when I was running the marathon, I wasn't listening to music up until mile 16. And I put on my headphones and it was something switched in my brain that like got me to run. But eventually I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to finish? Am I going to finish? And then when I saw the finish line and I crossed the finish line, I felt it was like kind of like that feeling that you described where someone was over you, giving you like energy over you. But for me, it was like an energy that started from the bottom of my feet that just surged all the way to the top. Like instantly. And it's giving me chills too right now. And I was so overwhelmed and overcome with, I don't even know what it is. I guess pride, I guess relief. I don't know what it was. But I just remember that it was a literal physical like energy that just surged all through like my body. And I was like, started bawling. I started bawling.
Wow. I
Yeah.
feel like that, I mean, there's so many ways in which we can experience energy healing through the physical body. And
Yeah.
running a marathon, and I mean that in some cultures running is considered a sacred act. You know what I mean? Because
Really.
the way and the energy that we move our body, it's like you can access a level that we can't access without having gone through that experience. So you were probably tapping into something, and like your body had experienced the vibrations and the release and the pushing and the, And
Yeah.
it's like you were experiencing something that you would not have been able to access having not gone through that marathon.
Yeah, I honestly, I will never forget that. I don't know if I will ever experience something like that again because it was very, a very physical, almost scary, but very, not like you said, it was only scary because it was not sure what it was. Like you're not sure what
Unfamiliar.
unfamiliar, but
Mm-hmm.
but you're not like in any pain. You're just experiencing that. So yeah, I'm so curious about energy, and I know that you have learned so much and have really looked into so much in terms of energy and healing and incorporating that into your work with your clients and entrepreneurs and creatives. I do want to go into, now that you've shared with me this transition going from wedding photographer into this new phase of your life where you decided to pursue energy healing and that work. How did you make that decision, or how did you begin to work with that decision? And when did you realize that that was a healing part
Experience.
of your journey? Yeah.
Yeah. So looking back, I recognize that I think I had to tiptoe at the beginning because I was still too afraid or intimidated to say, like, coming out, like cold turkey, going from, okay, I own this successful wedding photo video studio. I'm stopping this and I'm going to be an energy healer. Like, I think that one, it sounds wild. And
Yeah.
I felt like it was too wild. You know what I mean? I wasn't comfortable with that yet. So I was
Mm.
taking baby steps. So
Yeah.
at this point, I had already started looking into energy healing, but I wouldn't have I would always say, like, oh, I could never do that as like a job. It's just like something that it's like a secret little interest, like a
Yeah.
secret little hobby kind of thing. But so this was always kind of going on in the background. Like even
Yeah.
as a kid, if anybody talked about mysticism, or if anybody talked about like manifestation or
Mhm.
whatever, any spiritual experiences, I was like moth to a flame, like tell me more, or even like ghost stories or anything like that. I was
You
like,
right? Yeah, me
I
too.
was
I
all
love ghost
obsessed. Yeah.
stories.
Oh,
Yeah.
I got some for you. We could talk about that anytime. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so what I did was I saw an opportunity in a school I liked for life coaching. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, that sounds awesome. Like I'm a Sag rising. I've always been very like big dreams, ambitious. Like I love to motivate people. All my girlfriends, whenever they wanted to do something in life, I would always like see the highest vision for them. And I always believed in them. And I'd always like try to point them in the right direction. Or even with men,
Yeah.
when they're dating guys and they're like,
Yeah.
I'm like, don't you see that you're worth more than I was
Yeah.
always that
Yeah.
person. So it was really an alignment
Mhm.
for me. And I went through to an amazing school and, I got the training and all that. But what was happening in my sessions is that there was more happening than just traditional life coaching.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, I'm definitely guiding people through like an energetic experience. And I would love to bring this in more. So then I started taking more seriously, getting more official training on top of what I've already done in the healing arts. And so, yeah. So what I discovered that was kind of my process of blending coaching and healing work, because it's like I literally can't do one without the other. It's just not who I am.
Yes. Yeah.
But I recognized the value of that in my own life. So I've kind of given the story of like what my transition was like. I had to coach myself through a lot of obstacles, through a lot of limiting beliefs, through a lot of blocks within myself. And in that process, I started realizing how the energetic healing supported that process as well. But one of
Yes.
the most important things that I started realizing was that oftentimes when I wanted results, let's say in my business, in my new business, when I tried to just look at my business like this thing, and remember I talked a lot about my old willpower. When I just
Yeah.
tried to assert my willpower and I'm going to do this and leave out all my emotions and leave out my energetic wellness and leave out my body, I wasn't getting any results. It was like that wasn't working for me anymore. And I started understanding that there was energetic layers to my business, especially for soulpreneurs, people who truly want to bring this medicine of their innate gifts out into the world. It's like we cannot, if we want to be soulpreneurs, we cannot ignore the soul. Like that has to be our number one guiding light. And so I started recognizing how when I would heal things within me, my business would benefit. Why? Because my business is a reflection. It's not like totally me, but it's a reflection of me. It is coming from my unique heart's medicine. And another big part of this for me is I actually bring astrology. I wouldn't consider myself like, I've been studying astrology for a year and I respect it so much now that I learned. I'm like, it's going to take me a decade to like really wrap my head around. It is so layered and it is so complex. And I have a lot of respect for astrologers.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't consider myself an astrologer because I think that I still have I take these arts very seriously. I'm like, I have a lot to learn still, you know?
Yeah.
But I have a pretty good understanding of things, and especially when they relate to the soul purpose path. So I started looking at my north and my south node. And the north and the south nodes are the nodes of destiny and karma. So our north node is this path that our soul came to experience in this life. It's like a new experience that we are being called down. That, you know, back in the day when I used to feel like something is calling me, I'm supposed to do something else. It's like that's coming from that like nodal energy in my blueprint. The south node is more the karma of what our past is, what we've already put energy into, and it's our comfort zone. So sometimes we sit too much in the south node energy, and we're invited in this lifetime to work on the blocks, to work on liberating ourselves into the north node. So for me in particular, my north node is in Aries, the house of, of bold, of being courageous, of being independent, of going first, of being the warrior, but also in the fourth house, which is the house of home, of ancestry, of womb. And my south node, which is the node of karmic past, is in Libra, which is about, people pleasing and making people comfortable and always being in partnership, feeling safe in partnership. It's in the 10th house, which is like career, legacy, fame. So the more that I focused on my career with like a super intense magnifying glass, the more the energy was like, it's not doing anything for me. I don't need to focus on that. I already have those gifts innately in me. I already got that down. What I need to focus on is the energy of my home, the energy, with my relationships with my children, the energy of my ancestral healing, working with my womb. And so I started changing my priorities. For me in particular, an example of this is homeschooling. When I first started doing homeschooling, my husband's like, how are you going to do this? You have a business, how is this going to happen? And I was like, I can't explain it. It just feels right. The more I prioritized what was needed for my son, it's like I didn't even have to try. The energy of my business, it could breathe. And things started happening and momentum started flourishing and growing. And I started getting the results I do desire, but it was because I was looking at something that I had been neglecting, that it was not my comfort zone to look at, which was ancestral healing and changing my relationship internally in intimate spaces. Yeah. So every person's going to have different north and south nodes, which is part of when I work with clients, I actually take those into consideration and help them with that. And every person's going to have the thing that they're not looking at, and it's usually relationally, or it's usually their relationship to themselves or with other people that seems totally unconnected to their business or their sole purpose
Mm-hmm.
path, but it's
Yeah.
actually a pathway to liberation and momentum.
Yes. Yeah. Absolute 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to share that. I mean, everyone's journey looks different, right? But I think everyone does experience when they decide to go, because entrepreneurship, if we think about it, especially from a place of going after something that we create for ourselves from our own passions or skills or things that we like, then that, like you said, becomes an extension of us. It's not us, but it becomes an extension of us. And so it when we are then making decisions to do all of the entrepreneur things that usually come about, like taking up space, sharing your story, talking to people, like all these things that require you to share yourself in some way or another. Sometimes that's really scary. And if there isn't any experience or healing, that maybe there's been some sort of experience where like you were afraid to show yourself. Like I think of like, especially with like Latinas and being little girls. I don't know if this was an experience that you had, but as a little girl, I was told like to stay quiet, right? Or like to like
Absolutely.
not make myself visible, just to like shrink myself, and that was just like what I was expected to do. And so if you grow up with that type of belief, right? When you do decide to go after something that calls to you and you pursue it through entrepreneurship, it's going to require that you look and face these beliefs and experiences where you're uncomfortable with even taking up space or sharing your voice or your thoughts or opinions and all of that. If there hasn't been any healing or reconciliation or any sort of facing of that experience, it's not it's gonna show up in your business as well somehow. And I love
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, I love that you said that, when you began to really honor the messages that you were receiving, you started to see the results in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds counterintuitive because, like you said, you have the willpower, you can make things happen. And we can all, sometimes that's the only message that we receive as creative entrepreneurs. Is like, well, you have to be brave and courageous and just do it and like, do all of the scary things. But it's so hard to face scary things when you don't know how to regulate or if you haven't faced any or understood the tools that you need for healing. There's so many different ways that healing shows up for us. And like you've have mentioned so many different ways that it's shown up for you. And how that just listening to yourself and what you need has resulted in better results in this like extension of yourself, which is your business. So totally, for
I
sure.
think that's a beautiful point, and it's so dead on. It's like, and I really relate to you about what you said about being a Latina girl. It was the exact same thing for me, and definitely for my mother, and definitely for her mother. This is
Yeah.
not something that, I mean, that fear can live in our DNA, that energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where ancestral healing is really powerful, especially for Latinas and especially for communities where other cultures came in and demonized our relationships to earth and demonized our relationships to ourselves, and told us that, we cannot be who we naturally are. We have to
Mm-hmm.
conform to what the man says. And
Mm-hmm.
so here we are as ambitious Latina women with big dreams on our hearts, who want to build something true from ourselves, but we're still trying to get out of the too tight clothes of
Mm-hmm.
what we inherited, the messaging around what business is in the first place, about
Exactly.
how
Yeah.
we can achieve results. And it's like when you were talking about that willpower, I mean, I've got some deep lessons around that. That's for sure, that go beyond something. I mean, they're very personal. But it's like, what happens to things that don't bend? What happens to things that charge full force, especially as women who our bodies do not even operate that way?
Mm-hmm.
Things that don't bend, they break, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so allowing a softness where we begin to listen to ourselves. I mean, it's really uncomfortable in the beginning. I mean, you bringing up the idea of expansion doesn't always feel amazing. It can feel scary sometimes because we're expanding. I like to think of expansion about, like, I like to think of our world as being like this bubble around us of what is possible. And as we begin to expand the horizons of what is possible, make our dreams bigger or manifest or set new standards for ourselves, we're making that bubble, we're pushing it out, we're making it bigger and bigger and bigger. And as we do that, there's like this uncomfortable middle ground as we change our comfort zone, because there's a very human part of us that loves comfort, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a big
Mm-hmm.
human part of us that does not like change because we don't know what to expect and we don't
Yeah.
feel safe there. And so it's just like this constant process of recognizing where our boundaries are and recognizing which boundaries are being asked to be stretched and expanded, and working ourselves, being really compassionate with ourselves as we stretch our capacity for discomfort. Because I think a big part of healing is expanding our capacity to be uncomfortable. Healing is not always
Ooh.
comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
I love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that so much. Just you talking about expansion and how healing, yeah, I mean, healing is expansion, and
Hmm.
it's, yeah, you said it so beautifully, is extending those walls, that bubble past what is comfortable for us, and
Yeah.
sitting
And
there.
I think that we are all expansion. I think that in our true nature, we are all limitless. We are all one little drop in the ocean of divine love and consciousness. But I think that we have a lot of constructs around personality and life history, and then we have traumas and we have all these things that really kind of boxed us in. And so as we heal and expand, we're really kind of, it's more almost like we're releasing layers than fixing anything. We're not like fixing any part of ourselves. We're more like letting go of what wasn't ours in the first place. And that allows us to expand.
Mm, I love that. Yes, letting go of what wasn't ours in the first place. That's beautiful. I'm gonna sit with that today, and why I love listening to you and your podcast. And before I could talk to you for like, I'm pretty sure I could keep
Same.
going. Yeah, to like continue to talk about this and expansion, and you touched on how expansion has shown up. But before I begin to wrap up and transition, I do want to ask you, like, you mentioned a little bit about what expansion feels like, what it could look like. I would like to ask you, how has expansion shown up for you in your entrepreneur journey?
That's a beautiful question. Expansion for me, it's shows up in many different iterations. Expansion is a cycle to me. It evolves and it changes, just as a healing journey is a cycle as well. To me, expansion can, as I mentioned, feel intimidating.
Mm.
And then there's other times where like, for example, me being able to come out and say that I'm going to be a healer, right? That was incredibly uncomfortable process, but it was necessary. When I was on the other side of that, expansion felt like liberation. It felt like truth. It felt like freedom and joy and bliss and peace. When we are expanding in ways that are honest, you start to feel like you aren't seeking something anymore. You're already in it. Expansion for me is about sometimes it's leaning into my rest and knowing when to shut down and when to recluse or sit outside of my hammock in my garden that I can see right now.
Awesome.
Expansion is a cycle for me. And I really have come to love that about growth. Because one, it makes it sustainable, right? Instead of, can you imagine if every day we're just like, grow, 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 like if every day we're like, be the best person you could be today. Like there's a time and a place, right? Like I am about that most of the time, but also sometimes I need to nap, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes I just want to like cry.
Yeah,
Sometimes I just need to like go grocery shopping. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's expansion to me.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. I really felt that. I felt that. I saw that something as you were explaining it, like it was me feeling it and seeing it with you.
I think you're very intuitive.
I don't know. It's something that I want to continue talking to you about because it is I've been meditating a lot as well. So when you were talking about your experience as you were meditating, I was like, wow, like yeah, there's a lot that happens when you sit with yourself, just with yourself for like wherever you are, and there's a lot there. But I just want to thank you so much, Kris, for coming onto the podcast, for talking about your journey, your journey from entrepreneurship, your life as a mom and as a wife, and for sharing with us what expansion is and what it looks like for you. And I really felt it. And I'm so excited that hopefully listeners really felt that as well. And I'd like to take this final moment for you to share where people can find you and get in touch with you and work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for this conversation. I really love connecting with you. You're awesome and you're just fun to talk to and you're so grounded. So thank you so much. So my favorite place to be is on Instagram, and my handle is Kris Cazares Neri, KrisCazazneri. That's my name, Kris Cazares Neri. And but also I do have, I brought up the topic of self-compassion, and I think that for any of us on the entrepreneurial and healing journey, self-compassion is a must-have. I really don't feel like we can. This journey is not sustainable to heart, body, and spirit without self-compassion. And so I actually have a free self-compassion guided meditation that I have for free on my website. So if you go to my website, kriscazazneri.com, you'll see under the freebies, if you sign up, it will automatically drop in your inbox. So that's something I would love to offer anybody who's interested. And yeah, I share a lot with my email group of these deep thoughts and these cosmic forecasts even. So I would, love to see anybody there in that space.
Thank you. And I will be putting that in the show notes for sure, your links and links to your meditation. So come on over to the show notes to click on that, connect with Kris on Instagram, go to her website and connect with her. Thank you so much, Kris. This was amazing.
Thank you. I have chills.
And this is, yes, I am going to continue, past this. I hope we can stay connected. But thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What does expansion mean to you in your own life or business? And how have you experienced moments of growth that felt both exciting and a little bit uncomfortable? I encourage you to take a moment to reflect on this question, journal about it, or discuss it with your community. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to dive deeper into the world of entrepreneurship, be sure to visit my website and sign up for my newsletter for more tips, resources, and inspiration. If you have questions about starting your own entrepreneurial journey, email me at beatriz@beabosscoaching.com. That's BEATRIZ at beabosscoaching.com. I'd love to hear from you and maybe even feature your question in a future episode. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.